Companies are trying to scam you. Yeah, we already knew that, genius. Okay, but did you know they're using your personal data? Yes. Okay, but did you know they're using your most private, personalized data, from the battery level on your phone to the way your mouse moves on a web page, to charge you more for the same product? Now I'm listening. Picture this. You're at a store getting ready to buy some NyQuil for that cold of yours, and as you get in line, you see that someone else in front of you is buying the exact same thing. The cashier rings up that person and says, "That'll be $12, sir." The person pays and goes along, looking happy with their purchase. But when you give the cashier your bottle of NyQuil, something strange happens. They eye you up and down before scanning the item. Then they say, "That'll be $15, sir." What? But that person bought the same thing for only $12. How could that be possible? Well, the cashier says, "I noticed you looked like you're suffering from a cold more than that previous guy, and concluded you'd be more willing to pay a higher price than him. Sorry, bud. Rules are rules." If you were the guy who got upcharged, how would that make you feel? It would feel extremely predatory, right? Well, that's what's happening with a lot of our most common purchases online, without us even realizing it. This is what is known as surveillance pricing. It's when a company collects personal data about their actual or potential customers and uses a variety of techniques to target different prices to specific consumers for the same goods or services to generate greater profits. The practice can be highly invasive, incognito, and discriminatory. So in this video, I'm going to expose all the shady ways in which companies are extracting your personal information to make you pay as much money as you possibly can for their products. This video was inspired by an ongoing report published in January of this year by the Federal Trade Commission, and in this report they provided some really good use cases for how these data harvesting tools could be being used and how broad of a spectrum the use cases are. So let's take a look at some of them, which range from "that seems reasonable" to "how is this even legal?" The first tool is called a price targeting tool. Price targeting tools use algorithms that take data collected about consumer behavior and market conditions as inputs and generate targeted prices for a buyer or a firm. For example, let's say a company selling office supplies collects data about a nearby competitor on their pen prices and notices that they're selling their pens for $2.99. That company could then adjust their store in that area's price to $2.79 to win the sales on pens. Also, if a customer in that area visited the retailer's website, they'd only see the lower price tied to their location, never knowing it was different from what someone in another zip code might see. To me, in this context specifically, it feels like a generalized okay use case. It's simply just a company collecting data about their competitors and offering more competitive prices. This was going on long before more sophisticated data harvesting tools were created. Two companies placed close to each other battling it out by offering better prices is mostly a positive for the consumer and nothing more. Unfortunately, every other tool and use case after this gets much worse, but first we gotta talk about today's sponsor, the Viaim Rec Dot earbuds. So the earbuds themselves are really great. They fit well in my ears, they offer 2 different noise cancellation modes, and a ton of different sound profiles you can customize in their app. But what I think is the coolest part about these earbuds is that they're more than earbuds. First, you can transcribe your own audio in real time. The app has a transcription feature where you can record yourself or whoever you're close with, and it will automatically transcribe the conversation as it's going on. Then, if you want a helpful summary of everything you talked about, it will do this for you automatically. If you're someone who likes to speak their ideas out loud or wants to summarize the conversations you have with other people, if you're brainstorming or something like that, this would be extremely useful. Now check this out. Hit the recording app, choose the audio/video recording option, open up a YouTube video and let it play, and it'll automatically transcribe the audio in that video for you. Imagine getting the text version of the information in a YouTube video that you're trying to memorize and exporting that text data to something like Notion or Google Docs. That would help so much in the studying process, or if you're not a native speaker of the language being talked about in the video, this will help you study and learn that language better. I'm very impressed with the sound and capabilities of these earbuds, so if you think this would improve your listening, summarizing, or learning experience, then you can click the first link in my description to get yourself a pair. The next use case utilizes what are called consumer segmentation and profiting tools. These tools create unique consumer profiles and divide consumers into segments based on attributes or behaviors that are either inferred or explicitly defined. Those segments can then be used as targets for ads, promotions, and coupons based on what a company has learned about a consumer. The problem arises from just how much data is used to segment users, and what happens when it's combined with other specialized systems like search algorithms or product ranking tools. For example, let's say you're a teenage kid with a sports betting addiction. Not too uncommon these days. You're on a sports betting website and you're trying to decide between the myriad of bets you can choose from today. Due to the overwhelming choice, you think to yourself, I'll do more research and figure it out later. But just as you're about to close the page, a pop-up appears in the center of the screen. It shows you the NBA Finals game going on tonight with a special offer. Place one parlay, get another one free. And that entices you enough to actually place a bet. This is something that companies can and will do now. Using things like your browser's cookies and mobile software development kits, or SDKs for short, they subtly monitor your every move to manipulate you to stay on their pages as long as possible, and therefore be more likely to spend money. This has serious negative implications when we consider things that provoke highly addictive behavior, like gambling. Obviously, gambling is almost always a losing game, and that initial motivation to get sucked into it is usually the consumer's responsibility, but when these companies are tracking every one of your moves and using it against you, that's when we're leaning toward predatory behavior that takes advantage of you in your most vulnerable state. But it's not just the movement of your cursor or a single instance of you lingering on a web page that these companies are tracking. In the most extreme cases, they can do exactly what I outlined in the intro. Exploit you when they know they can get away with it. Imagine you're a new parent, overworked and underslept, looking for a baby thermometer for your new kid on Amazon late at night. Due to your poor lack of judgment, you just end up clicking on the first one and buying it, not even bothering to go through all the search results. Well, you could have been paying a significant amount more because the app has been tracking who you are. Using customer data platforms like Segment and Salesforce CDP, or behavioral analytics platforms like Dynamic Yield and Optimizely, companies aggregate and unify customer data from various sources, place you in a segment, then personalize the product's search results and price. They do this to get you to pay more, because they know, based on the data they harvested, that you most likely will. And now, because so many companies are using these softwares, from grocery stores to general merchandise stores, some tools offer the capability to track consumer behavior across a bunch of third-party sources. They'll buy or license data from third-party brokers, use third-party trackers embedded into other apps and websites, and integrate SDKs in mobile apps that collect data even outside of the original platform to create the most accurate profile of you that analyzes all your shopping behaviors in order to exploit you. And like we've seen, sometimes that exploitation might result in a better deal, but other times it's just downright diabolical. I know what you might be thinking. How is this legal? Well, the answer to that is similar to many shady online business practices. It's pretty easy to get a consumer to consent to having their data tracked like this, so long as you hide the fine print behind very sophisticated or harmless jargon. Like, no one wants to read all the information regarding cookies on a website. Most people just click accept and move on. But if you do end up reading further, you can actually see what these companies are getting from you. For example, when I go to RuneScape.com, shout out old school RuneScape, I'm immediately hit with the cookies consent. And if you go over to the statistics tab, you can see all the websites that are collecting the information from this website and how they're using it on their website. Of course, they're not going to say, and not legally required to say, this information may be used to take advantage of you in your most desperate states. They're going to say, the intention is to display ads that are relevant and engaging for the individual user and thereby more valuable for publishers and third-party advertisers. And now that more businesses are realizing how powerful this data collection can be, there's even talks or stories about it getting implemented farther in physical stores too. Within some grocery stores like Kroger, you may have noticed that the price tags have gone digital. These are called electronic shelving labels, or ESLs for short. On the surface, these might seem pretty useful, and in fact, they are depending on the context. Employees don't have to go around changing every single tag individually, allowing for easier instant price changes. In this context, it isn't really a case of surveillance pricing, but rather dynamic pricing. This is when companies use non-customer specific variables to adjust prices depending on changes in demand and supply, often in real time. It is a bit discriminatory in nature because companies can now more easily create surge prices for groceries, like increasing the pricing of many groceries during a time when people are more desperate for them, such as a flood. But where it really gets worse and where it starts to get into that surveillance pricing territory is when it's combined with software adjacent to online software such as cookies or SDKs. Kroger was actually under some heat last year for trying to do something like this. They partnered with Cooler Screens, which installs digital screens that embeds cameras and sensors to replace refrigerator and freezer doors that are usually see-through in a grocery store to serve ads. These have the ability to use facial detection to determine features such as age and gender to tailor the digital ads one sees on the screens. Now, Kroger insists that the sensors do not collect or store shoppers' data, and they don't seek to identify customers through facial recognition technology, only to detect customers' presence, dwell time, and door opens. But even still, if this was implemented, Kroger could still technically use features they infer from the facial recognition software to manipulate prices, their ESLs, in real time, which is kind of some Black Mirror type shit, isn't it? The question that I think is most important to answer and ponder is, where do we draw the line with all of this? Like, when does it go from this is beneficial to both the customer and business to this is an invasion of privacy and exploitation? Well, honestly, I think that line was crossed in just about every use case I went over. It's one thing for a business to have a loyalty program for a customer and give them personalized ads that help them save money, but it's a whole other thing entirely to secretly collect data about when they shop, where they are based on their IP address, what time of the day they're more likely to spend more money, and how much you can upcharge them based on how desperate they could be to buy something. The bottom line is surveillance pricing is an invasion of consumer privacy, and there needs to be more laws and regulations passed to protect consumers from these data harvesting and predatory business practices. With that being said, there's actually a few things you can do right now to protect yourself. First and easiest is to frequently clear your browser history and cookies. I know it sucks to have to put in your saved passwords again, but would you rather do that few extra minutes of work or get exploited? Second, on any website that asks for your cookies, choose the Don't Allow or Only Track Necessary Cookies option. This minimizes companies' abilities to track your info across different websites and use that information for their benefit. Another thing on your phone that you might see pop up when you first download an app is it asking to track your activity across other apps. Always click Ask App Not to Track. And to be even more secure, use a VPN to hide your location when possible. On top of those immediate things you can do, you can also push lawmakers to actually do something about this. Whether it's an online petition, writing to your attorney general, or voting for someone who advocates for regulation of this stuff, doing so lessens the likelihood of this getting worse in the future. Keep raising awareness and share this video around so more people realize how deep this actually goes. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll like my America's Debt Crisis video, which is why consumer debt and buy now, pay later services are designed to keep you trapped in debt forever. I hope you enjoyed. Stay optimistic. We'll fix things. I mean, this is a lot of new stuff. We'll figure it out, hopefully. Goodbye.